Some people just don't know how to be grateful.
There's kids in Africa, nachos. There's kids in Africa that don't give anything for happy birthday. Even half of that. Not you.
Yep. I didn't know what to do.
We don't.
No, it's not that bad.
No, it's not yet. I don't think this one's good at that.
No, it wasn't. We got to try the same way.
All right, we do have, let's see, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. I need, to approve the agenda, motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Bob made the motion and Erica seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, the same, motion passes. Item 4 is to review the board's common message. The Owens School Board strives to provide an environment where students can be happy, healthy, and awesome in their educational pursuits. We believe that each student can graduate ready for college and or a career. To do so, we will provide a safe, nurturing, and engaging learning environment that meets individual wellness, social, and emotional needs. Is there any district resident who'd like to speak to any item on the agenda? All right, presentations.
All right, so we're going to chat briefly about Iowa School Performance Profile, ESSA, and then IDEA designations. So acronym soup. All right, so recently, under the ESSA guidance from the federal government, Owens schools or several of our buildings have received new designations, and then just beginning of the month we got a new IDEA designation for special education. So we kind of walk through how all that, what all that is briefly, and kind of then what's it mean for our staff and administrators. All right, so Every Student Succeeds Act is the federal government's education act, which Race to the Top, No Child Left Behind, Elementary and Secondary Education Act that goes back all the way to Lyndon Johnson. It's all the same legislation. It's where Title I comes from, Title II, Title IV, Title IX, all live in that legislation. And then it just gets rebranded and renamed by whichever administration's in charge and whichever Congress passes it at that time. And different things can happen with the different title funds. But this last time under Every Student Succeeds Act, the State Department of Education for every state had to have a plan of how to support and help schools that were struggling. So the Iowa Department of Education, which is the SEA, which we don't use that all that often as an acronym, but in ESSA it is used, which is the State Education Agency. So they submitted a plan that they were going to create like a report card for every school district and then rank them based on levels of support. And then they specifically get titles and designations. So we get scored as a whole building, and then they take subgroups of students by race, special ed status, free or reduced lunch population, and then they subdivide those, and then you can get a sub-designation based off that subgroup. So the first time it's ever rolled out was in 2018. So this is the Iowa School Performance Profiles. If you ever want to just Google it, you can go in and you can search every public school building and district in the state of Iowa. It's got financial data, retention of staff, behavior data, and then most importantly, it's got the academic performance of our entire student population aggregated as a whole. And then this year, so it's kind of been in the wings for a couple of years, but they got delayed because of COVID. So a different piece of legislation at the federal level, which is IDEA, or Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. They're kind of parallel. They're not, in terms of the federal government, they don't cross, but they do try to synchronize some different components. And the state is also trying to synchronize efforts to keep things similar. So new designations for underperforming districts in terms of just serving special ed students is also new this year. So this is brand new. The state is not necessarily rolled out 100% what it looks like. But like I said earlier, at the beginning of the month, they did roll out the designations for all the school districts across the state of Iowa. So basically just looking at improving special ed performance in terms of what those test scores look like with special ed populations. So back in October, we got word that our designations had been updated. So all of our buildings had targeted status 4 years ago when they first came out, and they got put on pause for COVID, and then the clock kind of started ticking again. So once you get a designation, you're in that designation for 3 years before you can receive a new designation. So on the left-hand side, you can see our building, and then the overall score for the entire building. There's a whole matrix in terms of how they score them. Different things have different weights. It's a little bit like chasing your tail, trying to follow all the different numbers, but we do analyze what the different numbers mean and how often or how much everything is weighted. So a couple important highlights there. So the high school and the middle school were both a priority or targeted before, and so they've both moved out of that designation. So their scores have gone up, and so as a whole building, they're no longer targeted or getting any support from the AEA. So that's huge, good news. It shows that we're doing the right work. We're headed in the right direction. We need more time to continue working on a few things. Wings Park and Little Husky, they're kind of grouped together. There's not enough students at Little Husky, so they piggyback into Wings Park, so it's a little bit misleading. So they kind of are the same designation, and then Owen Online is first time kind of being in the system to have enough data. And so they get priority designations, and then it's a comprehensive level of support for the first year from the state of Iowa. And then on the far right-hand side where it says targeted subgroups, you can see students with disabilities, low socioeconomic status, and then elementary is low socioeconomic status and students with disabilities. So I think there's a handout so you can actually take that and look at it a little closer. But I think the important thing to recognize is that in each one of our buildings, students with disabilities has been identified as not only, so although we're improving our scores, students with disabilities is still a designated area in those targeted areas. So before we even got the IDEA designation, which this is so we're getting tier 3 support. They don't necessarily designate by building, it's by district, so it's your entire special ed system. It does look a little different. Based on our targeted status from the ESSA designation, we knew and were expecting an IDEA designation before they even came out. The AEA and the state they say they're gonna try to streamline things, so the work we have to do for one gets counted for the other. The bottom line is, if we can do the special ed work at this level, it'll help the other, right? So they really should work in concert in terms of showing and making gains and improvements. So, what does all this mean? We get 3 years for improvement. They do financially support us, so we'll get a specific dollar amount that we can use for training and subs and different programs that we want to bring in. So we do get some money for that. We do get state and AEA supports. We have regular meetings with our AEA team. They review our plan. We're required to submit an action plan of what we're going to do to make improvements. We are required to do specific specific professional development. So that'll happen over the summer. They haven't really communicated yet what that looks like in terms of requirements for our staff and who has to go and what that looks like. But there is specifically required professional development that we have to participate in. And then the AEA and the state will check in on us quarterly to make sure that we're making progress on our action plan. And then all of our work, so it used to be due in like April or May. They've backed that timeline off, so all of our reports and everything are due in June this year. And then we have 3 years to work on it to kind of get off the list, so to speak. So that's it. I wanted to go through it really fast. Obviously, there is a lot of different rabbit holes we can go down, but I'd entertain any questions for understanding. The other thing that I did share with you, just have this one. So this is the full IDEA designation. Our scores are really pretty okay, except from the back you can see our lowest in terms of percentile across the state. It's just our academic performance with our special ed kids those 3 areas are our weakest areas. So if we can really hit that hard, a lot of the other things are systemic in nature. So we do a really good job of making sure that our systems are tight and what we're doing is good. We're catching all those things. But bottom line is we need to improve our reading and math scores with our special ed students. And if we do that, it'll help not only this one, but also our ESSA designation as well.
Questions? Moving on to reports.
Yep.
Mrs. Jacobs.
Alright, well, first of all, I want to give a thank you to Mr. Kennan who wasn't here. He relieved me over at basketball so I could be here to give my report and then talk on something that I have later on the agenda. So he's over supervising basketball so I could be here. Thank you. Some special recognition tonight. Shout out to all of our winter sports who have almost all started with wins this season. Girls basketball had a major win over Postville by a huge margin. Same with boys basketball over Starmont. Riley Hartman, no, that's Jocelyn in front of me. Never mind, she's not here. But one of our female wrestlers was a champion at Central Decatur and 2 or 3 times now since. And then boys bowling had a big win in our home meet, down in Independence over Forest City. So it's really nice to kind of kick things off for winter season with a big bang. And right now our girls basketball team is on a 3-game win streak and hoping to, increase that to 4 while they're playing down in Independence right now. The boys are next door playing walk-on. Choir represented well at Old Time Christmas at the beginning of this month, and I included in there a little note from Arlington Place when they went also and shared some Christmas carols for getting in the spirit of this time of year that I'll let you read. It's always nice when we can have our kids get out and share the joy of music, and they do such a great job. In addition, last year, Coach Jason Gerhart was selected as the overall winner, as our 2A boys Coach of the Year for the state. This year, he was again selected as an at-large Coach of the Year, so he was honored at the state track coaches clinic at the beginning of this month. So he's there, pictured if you scroll down a little bit more, with the other nominees. So just really cool to see. We held our boys wrestling tournament on 12/10. So a huge thank you to Tim Hadley, Dalton Leaf, and all the community members who came together to make that happen. I was out of state. I had won a scholarship from the state girls union to attend the National AD conference. So they all put that on without me and did a wonderful job. So kudos to them. And again, it's a great way to represent our community and have all those schools come in for that. Our girls tournament will be in January, and we have 25 other schools coming for that one. So that'll be a big one, and we're excited for that. In addition, on the healthy section, Jalen Cron earned our first sanctioned girls win in our home gym last week, which is pretty cool to see. And then finally, under the awesome category, our NEVA Honor Band, which we host every year, was a huge success. Melissa Franson and Corey McBride put that on. And so that's middle school and high schoolers from all over the northeast section of the state. When you put it all together, I think it's like 800 musicians, and then all of their families. So again, another huge influx of people coming into our community and seeing how great Oline is. So thank you to them. And last but certainly not least, last spring, we were given money by the Northeast Iowa Charitable Foundation to purchase a new mascot costume. Champ is not going away, but he's seen better days. So we got him a sister, and the coaches and students and staff voted to name her Moxie to be his little sister, and that means, you know, swagger or determination and grit. So fitting perfectly into our Husky edge. And I tried to get a picture to upload into there, but I couldn't for whatever reason. So she's a little more cartoony looking, a little more friendly looking for our younger kids. So that way, it's not as scary to look at or terrifying when they see her walking around the halls. So there you go. Yep, thank you, Mr. Rain. And Mr. Rain pointed it out when we had a pep assembly to roll her out. You can really kind of tell how ratty Champ has gotten when you put the new mascot next to him. So we now have Moxie and Champ. Champ will still be around. Champ will still come out, but we'll probably be using Moxie a little bit more since she's a little cleaner and kid-friendly.
You want to do girls wrestling now?
Yeah. Coach Sorensen, I will turn it over to you. If you have not had the pleasure of meeting Brock Sorensen, he is our girls wrestling coach as well as one of our industrial tech teachers at the high school. So I'll turn it over to you, Coach.
I guess I'll just say that we've got a small group of girls, but they're hardworking and fun to work with. So, like Ms. Jacobs said, we've had some success. Bradley got, I think, 3 first place and a couple other girls that have placed at tournaments. I know Jalen got 3rd at the South Wind, and a couple others I can't remember off the top of my head. January 14th is our home tournament, and then the qualifying, what do they call it?
Super regionals.
Super regionals, yep, new term. January 27th, and then our state wrestling will be the February 1st and 2nd in Iowa City. So, I don't know, you girls got anything to add?
Yes, I do. Who do you have with you? Introduce yourself.
Sorry.
I'm Jocelyn. I'm their 125 wrestler. I'm a sophomore. I think, respectfully, Oline isn't really known for their sports and stuff. I think it's overlooked about even when we are good at sports. But honestly, with our new program and how it started, I think we're starting off on the right foot. I mean, we have really good coaches, and we have good systems, and we have good girls. And I think in a couple of years, we could have a really good program.
I'm Devin Meyer, I'm a freshman, I'm wrestling at 110 right now, moving down to 105. We have really good coaches, and I think we'll have a really good girls program in future years, because we have a lot of really determined girls.
How do we get more girls out?
I think just talking about it and winning more stuff.
I mean, we've already gotten some of the basketball girls to turn over to wrestling, and I think honestly, just getting it in their mind that wrestling is an option, and just for some of those more people that don't necessarily want to do basketball but still want to do a sport, I think just getting that idea out to them would get them to transfer over to wrestling. Because I brought it to some of my friends' attentions, and they're all just kind of on the edge of doing it, but they haven't really gotten to know the sport or love the sport to transition over.
Is this your first year? Did you do it last year?
Kind
Ish.
of. Last year, I started like with a month left, so I didn't really have a lot of experience, but I would consider this my first year.
This is my second year.
Second year, okay. I couldn't remember if middle school.
And the middle school gets to start after the
Yeah.
holiday, right?
After break, yep.
Start
And then they have their first tournament that's home January 13th, so the day before high school.
How many are we expecting?
Numbers wise,
Yeah.
girls, if everybody has a full roster, there's 14 weight classes, so 14.
Oh, not expecting a tournament. How many junior high girls?
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I believe at my meeting there was 7.
Okay.
So,
and they'll wrestle 7-12 in practices. So that'll be great to have the older girls mentoring the younger girls and having a nice full team in practice like that. What are your favorite parts of wrestling?
Oh, everything. I love the sport. I like that it's a you on you. It's really mental too. You can make it or break it in this sport, and I think just like kind of having to push through it all and having to mentally get yourself past the physical part of it, I think is the hardest part, but also makes the sport really special.
I like all of it. I think it like prepares you for life in the future.
Cool.
Thanks so much for
Yeah,
coming.
thank you.
You don't have to stay. Unless you want to. We are on to a forgiveness.
Thank you.
Okay, so December 8th was the first of our elementary music concerts. Our second grade held an performance called Deck the Hall, while our fourth graders put on a production called Starbook. And a huge thank you to Tara Kedoff. She always does such a great job with these performances. And all our students did amazing on stage. Big thank you to all the adults who helped support those kids both on and off the stage too. It's just great to see everybody come together like that. And of course, I mean, it's standing room only every time, so it's always great to see. A couple weeks ago, Allison Carroll, who is our elementary level 2-3 special ed teacher, she and I took a field trip to River Hills, just to kind of get a feel of how that school helps support their students who have extremely high needs. And it was really remarkable to see just the amount of structure and routine that the adults put in place for these kids. I remember them talking about how with some of those kids, they help them even get jobs when they graduate. And just the little things that they do during school that will help them be successful in those careers, so those kids can then go on and contribute to their communities. And I know Ms. Carroll too took a lot of notes, a lot of ideas to bring back into her classroom. It's been neat to see her already kind of implement some of those structure things to help her kids. I recently completed the pre-K desk audit, which is one of the bigger reports that I have to do each year to the state. We show evidence of our implementation of the Iowa Quality Preschool Program standards. We have to demonstrate things like how we communicate with families, how we collect and analyze data, how we implement health and safety protocols. There's kind of a laundry list. There's 10 different standards, and showing evidence of each of those and how, as an administrator, how I make sure that those things are happening. So that was done and submitted on time last week. And then the last thing, I wanted to give a big thank you to the Grand Theater of Oelwein. For the second year in a row, they offered a free movie day to all of our students, pre-K through 4th grade. And I'm just super grateful for the opportunities that our community provides to our students, because with some of our kids, this may be the only opportunity they get to go to a theater and see a movie. And I also want to shout out Tara Spersloggy. She's the one who kind of organizes it on our end, making sure transportation was taken care of, drink orders, all the different logistical things that go into making something like that happen. She just kind of takes the reins and leads the way. So a big thank you to her for all of that.
Interesting component about the preschool desk audit that Justin completes. At the same time, I'm doing the K-12 desk audit for the entire district, and his is more comprehensive than mine is.
They go over mine with a fine-tooth comb, and I just check the box on his.
It's true. So it's just interesting. He has 1 grade level preschoolers, and like I said, ours is K-12, and it's much faster and less comprehensive than the pre-K one. So interesting.
Any questions? I'm gonna just ask for everybody, just because has the illness been, are we keeping track of like percentages, kids out or staff? Has that been an issue? Just because it's more of a personal interest.
Yeah, it is. I know there's been a few days where subs were just impossible to get.
I was just wondering if it was getting hard.
The time we do keep track. We're keeping very close track of attendance this year. The snow day last week on Friday helped. It was good timing. And
The
then
Thursday before, the day before the snow day, at the middle school, we were down to 7 teachers, but 4 teachers without subs. So we had kids in the cafeteria. I was in a class all day, which was great. It's great, literally, right? Yeah. But that was, there was no human beings anywhere.
I think the difference this year, numerically, our numbers are similar, but the difference this year seems to be the length of time that kids are out. So influenza A, for instance, it's a week and a half. The recovery time just seems to be really heavy. Not sure if it's immunity, from COVID or what, but so I would say that we're starting to see students, and I would agree, staff at every level, just had 2 notifications of COVID tonight of staff. So, that's starting to come back around. And I think people are seeing families and doing things. It's part of the cycle. So break will be a good time as well as the Friday. Just get them out, sanitize.
And get them all infected.
Yeah, until we come back, yeah.
I could all wear masks. No, I'm teasing. I don't want to.
No.
All right. Okay, thank you. Oh, gosh, okay, we're on to Mrs. Adams.
Piggybacking real quick off of what Justin said about the movie, they included O2 students, and one of the families had never taken their students to the theater before, so they kept thanking everybody for inviting them to the showtime. They had never been. So that was a nice experience. Our Odyssey kiddos went to and enjoyed it. With Odyssey, we had something that popped up a couple, maybe 3 weeks ago. Mrs. Dudley reached out to Mr. Jacobs at the middle school about going to the library, because we noticed when it came to doing audiobooks, they were not a fan, but if we could put a book in their hand, they were happy. And so we've been going once a week now over to the middle school library to check out books. And Mrs. Dudley says they get out of the van, they go into the building, and she's ready to give directions, and she walks into the room and they're all spread out with their books in their own little private quarters reading. And that's just a testament of how important getting those things into the hands of kids can be. But they love every minute of being able to check out their own book, pick what they want, read it, and know that they have options the next week to get more. And I think we also got all of them started in a series, so they want the next book. O2 has been super busy because we're coming on to the end of the semester for our kids. We're losing some back to home districts, we're losing some back face-to-face. But I think today when I looked for every student that is leaving O2, we are taking, the math came out to a student and a half back. So we're not necessarily losing in numbers. We are losing some of our special education students back face-to-face. They need that support. So we will be able to take students with IEPs again into O2. And then we've also started putting some ownership on the students that are not gonna complete their classes in time for the semester end. They were given the opportunity to request an extension, which would involve a contract owning why they need the extension, a parent's signature, and then coming in and having a conversation with me for my signature. Is an opportunity to be able to say, it's really important that you're sitting down, you're developing a schedule, you're finding habits to make sure you get your schooling done so you're not running into this at the end of every semester. Those have been the big things for the last few weeks.
On to Ms. Sanford.
All right, like it says there, it's been a busy month, as December always is. We had 2 amazing concerts and a performance by the 5th and 6th grade drama club. Our kids do a great job of showcasing their talents, and really, a shout out to both Mrs. Franzen and Ms. Gruman for putting these things on and the time that it takes outside of the school day and staying and doing that stuff, so shout out to them. Our PBIS team has been working very hard at creating a space, like it says there, where all of our students feel welcome and supported academically. So an activity day has been planned, it's this coming Wednesday, and basically it's to help kids, well, one, get the work done, but then to also celebrate the kids. It's divided up into two parts of the day where it's really focused for those kids that are significantly behind in getting work done, that they will work, and then there'll be other fun activities going on, and then at the end of the day, there'll be something for all of the kids to partake in. Shout out to Mr. Post, Mrs. Courtney Vandenhall, and then Mrs. Nina Smock. They asked, like, we wanna do this, do you care? And I was like, I think it's a great idea, And I'm sorry, the Wednesday before holiday break, sounds like a great idea. And so they just run with it and, just checked in with me, and they just did a great job. Our BLT has been working with our AEA rep a lot, and really taking to heart our SM designation. Like, we are proud of the growth we've made, but know that there's so much more to do. So having lots of really good conversations and honest conversations about what we feel we need to do as a building to get all of our kids to advance and what that looks like. And so our tier 2-3 team has been working on just looking at our systems and putting things in place, and feel really good about what we're gonna roll out to staff on when we come back in January. And it's great to work with this team because they're so solution focused. And just like, okay, this is the problem, let's talk about it. So my BLT team is just amazing right now. And exciting news, our science teacher, she has been in the building multiple times. She's been there when kids have been there. She showed up at a TLC meeting. She's coming on the weekend. She just is a go-getter, wants to get in there, so it's very exciting. And she'll start in the building on the 9th, kind of as a sub, and because she won't maybe have her license done by then, but she'll finish out the Edgenuity stuff. So we're just really excited to have someone there, and we're doing great things at OMS.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Hadley.
Yeah, good evening. Bowen High School, special recognition to Liz Stang and Kelly Roth. They've been putting together some resources for our staff. We also invited an ELL expert from the AEA. ELL is English Language Learners. We went from 0 students in that category. Last year, 5, which doesn't sound like a lot, but these are 5 students. 4 of them are directly from Guatemala. Have had no English experience at all. So imagine, all of the things that we do, and then now dropping them into not only learning English, but then math, science, et cetera. So it's been a learning curve for us. Our staff has adjusted super well. Technology's been great. We're able to put some programs in place on their computers, and staff, we found translators. They can translate a lot of the worksheets, a lot of things they do. But Ms. Rose and Ms. Stang have been instrumental. Ms. Corkery as well, our Spanish teacher, we've utilized her a lot. We were able to hire a part-time translator as well, Kathy Weatherby. She's been around the district a little bit. Didn't know she spoke Spanish. I think she dusted it off for us, but she's been really great. It doesn't just, these folks don't just give these students someone to help with the language, but also just the culture expectations. One of the young ladies came out for basketball. It's awesome. So she's getting involved. Her English is just improved already, just being around the girls, and that's our hope. I think we're getting soccer. They're really excited about soccer. So, okay, we're doing that. That's our hook. Like, hey, keep coming to school, man. Like, we got soccer coming. Ms. Fuel, Mr. Anderson, and Ms. Daggy took 40 OHS students to Wells Fargo Arena to attend a Pentatonics concert. I was really jealous. I like them. I think they're awesome. Again, like Mr. McGinnis said, the 21st Century Grant just supported this work as well. And it's just things that some of these students would never have the opportunity. I actually met the bus that night because it was icy conditions. Mr. Ken and I came up to make sure they got home safe. It was 2 a.m. They arrived, and they were also smiling-ish and really excited. And they all got home safely. And part of their contract they signed to go was that they would come to school the next day, and then Mr. Ames canceled school. So I voted for this. But it was awesome. We're looking to do several more opportunities like that and continue to open it up. Just a huge diversity of students. Much like everyone else, we're working with the AA to improve our scores. Also excited about the growth in ESSA, but not satisfied with our conditions of learning. That piece specifically, conditions of learning, is a piece where we interview students and community members and stakeholders just about how they feel about Hawaiian High School. And some of our numbers were a little lower, and so we're finding new ways to kind of explore that, to physically and emotionally support students and relationships across. And so academically we're growing, we want to grow emotionally as well. Husky Productions provided a holiday light show for staff and students. They started that this week. Mr. McBride's room, I think today he said he had over 200 people come through, which is awesome, all ages. And it's student-led, student-directed. They hook it all up, and if you get a chance to go to Mr. McBride's room, check it out. We put out some schedules for that as well. Our counselors recently led all of our staff in a crisis intervention response, as well as Ms. Jacobs is really instrumental in helping us put this together. But essentially, we wanted something that was consistently able to respond to a student in crisis. And we have things like that, but we were very direct with how kind of the protocol and gave script and tools. It was really neat to see the discussion and our counselors embrace that work. Today, all of our 9th graders participated in, it's called Admire. It's a dating violence awareness simulation provided by Iowa State University. I pulled this quote out of what they shared. I sat in on one of the simulations and went through the groups, and essentially the students are given a scenario of a couple, and then they get to decide how the relationship unfolds from there. And some of it got real toxic real fast. I was surprised by how much students allowed, to go down that path. Probably the most interesting one of the scenarios ends in unfortunately the death of one of the young ladies. She meets her ex-boyfriend in a park or something, and they have the actual visitation. It's based on a real life story, and that really hit home. I was like, wow, that's incredible. I can't imagine. And so one of the things that the things they said that I pulled, I'd never heard before, it said, be weird, be rude, stay alive. And so when it comes to young relationships, it's okay to be weird and say, no, I'm going to keep my boundaries. It's okay to be a little bit rude and push that person away and not make friends in that way. And obviously, always look to stay alive. And at the end, they share all kinds of resources, tips on creating friend networks that you can go to. We had our counselors were involved as well, and then there's a local Fayette County response team member that was here as well throughout the simulation that also talked as part of it. So really, really awesome stuff that I guess I hadn't really thought about until I had a student in my office that had a really interesting dating scenario, and it's like, okay, how do we bridge some of these gaps and teach some of these things? So really cool experience. We've been reviewing our course book. It's kind of a strange time for us. We're ending a semester about to start a new semester, but we're also looking into next year. So next month we'll propose to you our course offerings. We do that typically in January, so we'll start enrolling students for 23-24 in February and March. So things escalate very quickly. We're always looking at the best way we can serve our students with the staff we have. We have partnerships in lots of different ways, NICC and other community partners that we also work with in conjunction to build up some of these programs, like our EMT program that is starting next month as well. We've been gathering some staff feedback, and we've designed some mini professional learning opportunities with our early out structure. It's been fun to see that. Our associates, and district-wide, the associates have been in paras, have been participating in kind of mini course PDs as well, which is really great. I feel like sometimes they're underserved as far as their training and what they get, so it's been neat to see that, and that's led by paras within our building. So for us, Hannah Bullen, she's a former graduate of OHS, and been a great hire, and she's leading our other associates and work while we're doing simultaneous work with our certified staff. Pretty cool. And then, of course, today we had our Red and Green Day, and we've been participating in holiday dress up, and we'll have activities Wednesday afternoon, a little bit like OMS. So we're going to have an academic day in the morning, and in the afternoon we'll do some fun things to get everybody out safely.
Thank you very much. No public hearings.
None.
Now we're going to talk about school finance.
Yay.
Okay. So, ISFIS is one of your acronyms there, but it's also in the upper right-hand corner in the fine print there, Iowa School Finance Information Services. So we are a member. Oline Schools is a member of ISFIS. Josh and I, once in a while, will go to they have like budget workshops and different things like that where they kind of tell us all the new tools and levers that we have at our disposal for working the budget through in the spring. But they had one of their people down there come up with this, put this together in a PDF that's linked to the narrative, but also printed and laminated here for you to see, that just kind of basically puts it in color, kind of attaches all the different hoses to the different sources of funds and ties them to the different funds that we talk about that you see every month in the accounts for our district. Now, obviously, we don't have a PEARL, Public Education and Rec levy, but other than that, pretty much everything on there we do have. One other thing I wanted to mention was the ISL. We discovered last year that ours is not restricted, meaning we can use it for what we see fit in our general fund use. So while that is kind of a darker green shade there under general fund, ours is not as restricted as that might lead you to believe. So ours has a little more freedom in it based on the language you approved on the ISL resolution. So with that in mind, I don't really want to get into the weeds, but I'm happy to talk about this if you'd like. But more than anything, just wanted to pass it along and show you that there are some really nice tools that ISFIS gives us to use for our planning purposes, and helping me to understand it better, and hopefully helping you all to understand it a little more easily too. There's a lot more words on the other side. There's not as many colorful things. It's but I will draw your attention to the box in the upper left side on the less colorful page, financing the general fund. There, that really kind of hits home for us in terms O-line, property poorest versus average valuation versus property richest, and just how the funding works on something like that. You can see that we would fall in the left column there, the property poorest, not poorest in the state, but among all the districts we would fall in a poorer category. So the state aid fills that bucket a lot more than the uniform levy fills that bucket to get to that 88.4%. How they came up with that number is beyond me, but that's the number, right? And so, any additional levies there, you know, you can see it's 685 in this example across the board. That's kind of like when we decide what our management levy is going to be. It's kind of, you know, that's we tell it how much we need to fund. You know, we come to you and tell you how much we think we need to put in management, or how much we think we need to put in PEPL to carry out the plan for the next fiscal year. Those are a little more straightforward, but the stuff under that 88.4, it just kind of varies by how much you expect you're going to see in your property valuations, and how much revenue you're going to bring in there versus how much you're going to rely on the state revenue that comes in. So just, I don't know, just a lot of different things there. If you have trouble going to sleep tonight or something, why, go ahead and read that at your leisure.
Graph is really hits home on an excellent point that the legislature from time to time totally misses when they create specific levy rules. Modified allowable growth or dropout prevention is a specific levy that we can utilize to levy local tax dollars to support specific at-risk programming in our district, which is primarily tied to, we find it's tied to free reduced lunch population. So if you have a higher free reduced lunch population, you have more kids at risk that you have to serve. But it's a tax that's based on your property tax rate. So it's kind of actually inversely written, where if you're property rich, you can levy more tax money, but you have fewer students to serve because they're more affluent, they have more access, et cetera, versus on our side. And then 10 years ago, they just created this cap that said you can't go up or down anymore. And now students in poor or richer communities, they basically have access to more money than students potentially in poorer districts because of some arbitrary rule that was created 10 years ago. And anytime you talk about changing property tax amounts in dollars, then it really puts red flags up for a lot of folks. But it's silly. And I did also just want to add that I've gone through dozens of trainings and created trainings on school finance and talked to you guys about school finance and orientations for new board members. This is by far the best one-page explanation of how school finance works. It is a little chaotic that's how school finance is, but really you can draw some pretty quick conclusions about where the money comes from, and then shows you what we're basically allowed to spend it on and what we're not allowed to spend it on. There's some details in here I'd like to change or maybe make different, but bottom line is that it's pretty good illustration to see where things get funded, how they get funded, and then what is funding that mechanism in the school finance world.
Yeah, Jeff, we don't like to move the whole around if we could.
Yes.
What is an income surtax?
So when we do our budget, it's a way to divert money away from property taxes. Basically, that from the state income tax side, it backfills specific pools of money. So, like that hose that fills one of those buckets. In this case, it would be the general fund. And if you're property poor, you can pull that lever a little higher for income surtax. So basically we could say, well, we have more income that we're generating than what our property values are. And so the state's basically said, well, that's kind of an equalization formula that we can give you as a property poor community to draw in more resources or maybe play with your tax rate a little bit. So it all then ends up flowing through state aid and then back into our general fund.
I see. So it's state funded though?
Yes.
State income tax?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's a property tax mechanism, and it is one of our tools that we can utilize to adjust our property tax rate on an annual basis.
Okay. But it's funded, it's not funded by the state. It's funded by taxpayers in the district.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
But
it
it's
is.
gauged off the state income tax. So it might be like 5% of whatever you pay in state income tax would be your income surtax if you live in the Ojai district outside.
Yes. Good question.
Alright, we're on to consent agenda items.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented. Well, the items, consent agenda items as presented.
Bob made the motion and Erica seconded to approve the consent agenda items as presented. Discussion. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, the same, motion passes. Item 11A is to approve the SBRC application for River Hills.
So this is the other half of that. Last month we met and I said that we had it for Lead Center, but not yet for River Hills. This is that same thing, but for River Hills instead of Lead Center. So allows us to pay for administrative costs for an administrator outside of the district. And we have to apply to the SBRC to allow that, so.
Recommend approval.
Oh, I move that the board of directors of the Ojai Community School District approve the application of the school budget review committee in the amount of.
Michael, do you have that amount off the top of your head?
It's on the narrative. It is $373,820. Oh,
Nope,
I'm
wrong
sorry.
one.
It's administrative.
Both those links are the same.
Yeah, why are they both the same? Here, I've got it here. It's in the, I know it's in the folder. Yes.
$7,000 something.
Yeah, for Owine, it's $4,682.17.
For $4,682.17 for special education administrative costs associated with the River Hills Consortium program for the 2023/2024 school year.
Good job.
Bob made the motion, Erica seconded to approve the so presented there. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, the same, motion passes. B is to approve the SBRC at-risk dropout prevention modified supplemental funding.
Okay, so this one is for our plan for dropout prevention for next year. Good news is that fourth line there is a 0. That's something we've been working at for a while to get that to show as a 0. It should have been last year, it wasn't, but that shows a 0. So we didn't carry anything forward from FY22, and this is a calculation that they use to get us to the amount that we're applying for today. So they take district cost per pupil, $74.19, certified enrollment of the current school year, $13.26, and they multiply that by 0.038, and that is $373,829. So that is what we're asking for, and then we always have to put in a number there of identifying the potential dropouts and returning dropouts. So, and then the only other piece is the minutes from tonight with your approval to apply for it. So, and the application will be complete.
So just because I just talked about it, so this was the thing I was mentioning in terms of the rate that's kind of random. So there are some districts that are capped out at 0.05% of the property tax rate, and ours is capped at 0.038 because there was a time, like I said, 10 years ago, where they just locked you in at what you currently were, and boards could have elected to raise that, but at the time we didn't need to or chose not to, and so we're locked in until the state legislature changes language to that rate. Anyway, hate to be a bummer, but still recommend approval. It's opportunity for us to maximize those dollars from the state.
I'll make the motion to approve the FDRC dropout prevention modified supplement funding for the maximum level of $373,829.
Second. Like, I can't second, but I tried. Eric made the motion, Bob seconded to approve the at-risk resolution as presented. Discussion.
Go ahead. What does this do? I understand we're allocating money towards it.
So this last year, we kind of revamped the structure for it. So in the past, it was kind of, we had a few aides and a few teachers and a few counselors, all kind of tied to that funding, and it basically paid for salary and benefits on them. And then we had supplies tied to it, and we paid NICC to provide the alternative school, the REC. So that was kind of how it all was spent out in years past with those various things. Now this year, the reorganization of it has been, for the most part, a lot of those same folks in terms of the salaries and benefits, with the change being we brought Jennifer Shackleton into our staff. She left NICC, and we do the REC thing in-house. So we don't pay NICC it was roughly $140,000 last year, to hire Jennifer Shackleton and pay take care of the curriculum and all of that stuff. We do it all here now. And we house that under, a large part of that anyway, under the dropout money.
So, Joe, this was, to use this model, gosh, probably almost 20 years ago now. State aid was a lot lower. Schools were funded a lot more by property tax, and the state wanted to put more money into specifically targeting, helping our dropout rate. And to do so, they created a funding mechanism that said, if you put this much of your property tax towards this fund, we'll fill the bucket this much, and then that's the 75%, and then the district's got to close with whatever resources you have, close that gap with 25%. And it used to be highly scrutinized in terms of what you put your money towards, and then over time, those systems really just became baked into what we do. And pretty much I'm probably sure every district in the state of Iowa maximizes as high as they possibly can these systems. And back, probably 5 or 6 years ago now, the legislature heard frustrations from districts that our hands are so tied with some of these things that we don't have a lot of flexibility, and it became very cumbersome. So they created less rules, they actually took rules away, and we have a lot more options in terms of what we can fund. And so we have changed some things over the last few years to be, not loose, but what's best for our district. So we added a high school guidance counselor with some restructures. Barb Schmidt's position as a district family resource person has been funded with these funds specifically. As we've saw the needs that we have with our kids, we've adjusted and changed resources. We used to have to ask permission from the state to do it. Now we don't have to. We can just decide what we're going to do and report how we're going to spend it. But the funding mechanisms are, like I said, kind of baked in. But we still have to follow the statutory requirements of approving the budget on an annual basis. We have to ask permission from the SBRC board specifically to do this so that we can create another silo. So even in this general fund, we have silos too that really aren't even illustrated here, where here's $373,000 plus our 124 that we're going to put into this budget of $500,000 to pay for 7 or 8 different things that we do within the districts. And sometimes they get complicated, and you look at something like that and it looks fairly complicated, but I appreciate you trying to understand it. And
So this is a lot further than just helping dropout kids. This is
yeah, we do go a lot further into at-risk prevention, and we've noticed over time that a lot of our best investments are done even at the elementary level, and really making sure that we have students connected to school and are getting the services that they can get at really early ages, that those dropout type decisions and behaviors are established in middle school. And if we can get them successful in elementary and get them into middle school and really get through middle school successfully, that their chances of success at the high school level are significantly higher.
Okay. Understood.
Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, the same, motion passes. C is to approve the updated job descriptions.
All right, so these are attached to the organizational restructure. So this is, you guys approved the contracts. This would be Haley Roth, Chief Operation Officer or Operations Director. Basically, review the daily operations of transportation, food service, environmental services, which are custodians, and then building maintenance and grounds. Pretty basic stuff. I took some of her old job description, a few things from transportation, and Kevin's old job description, and kind of married them together. And then took some of those things also that Kevin did as grounds director and put them into the new grounds director position. And this is, snow removal, trees and grass, rubbish, any kind of landscaping issues, and then also overseeing the seasonal staff that we would potentially have on those kind of things. This is Mike Hahn. Mike's already got big ideas too about line painting and doing some other things in our parking lot that we currently hire out, about doing it internally. So it'll be, I think, a good investment in human capital for the district. The next one is environmental services. So this is Jim Prouty, and so he'll be in charge of all the buildings in terms of the maintenance, the general regulatory maintenance, the regular maintenance on our equipment, filters, fire alarm systems, anything with electrical, water, air conditioning, overseeing all that, and then getting into each of our buildings on a daily basis to oversee all of our custodial staff. And then the last piece of this puzzle is we added a component for lead cooks in each of our buildings. And this is taking responsibilities off of Haley's plate in terms of ordering and planning for menus, maintaining bills and purchase orders, make sure that they arrange for and helping support audits, and then kind of helping supervise the staff that's in their buildings, and finding subs or moving kitchen staff around based off of need. Just like anything, we don't have a ton of kitchen staff subs, so sometimes we have to share staff. A dishwasher can go be a server in another building, and then they just have to all help do dishes at the end of the day. So they have to help kind of coordinate with each other on that. Pretty basic, nothing really new. It was a kind of a reorganization of things that we already had, just got restacked into the new positions. With that, I'd recommend approval of those new job descriptions.
Second.
Erica made the motion, Joe seconded to approve the, descriptions as presented, discussion. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, same, motion passes. D is to approve the engineer architect for the Sacred Heart HVAC project.
All right, so I reached out to 4 different firms, got proposals back. Actually, one of the ones I've reached out to, and then MGA here in town reached out to me after seeing our board minutes and asked if they could put a proposal together. And we said that was fine. Also talked to Boyd Jones, Pete, to kind of get any recommendations he had. And he obviously has some insight on different performances of different engineers. But I didn't get hearing back from a couple of them. Must be very busy. So the 2 in front of you are, one is from Bluestone. They were the engineering firm for the middle school renovation project that we did 5 years ago. They were excellent. They also were the engineer for the East Penn building, like the entire $80 million project. MGA, we've worked with before in the district, I'd say with mixed reviews. They really would be a huge part of this. They would draw the building shell, and then the lion's share of the work would be KCL Engineering. So if you can see on that breakdown too, in the very last page, that MGA's proposal, they're doing $25,000 for the overall contract and the drawing of the specs, and then KCL is the one that would actually do all the heavy lifting of the work to be done. When we set out on this project, I had estimated $250,000, could potentially jump to $300,000 for what I thought it would take. After visiting with the engineers and seeing their proposals and doing a walkthrough with one of them, and you can see on the first page of MGA's the project, they're estimating that the entire project will cost $700,000. 200% more than what I was anticipating, which is fairly significant to put air conditioning into a building when replacing the boiler would cost, the boiler that's there now we could replace for $60,000 to $80,000. Call it $100,000, and it's still a pretty significant amount of money to put in air conditioning. The specs, or the proposals to do the work, because of the ancillary rooms on the outsides of the gym, the 2 locker rooms, both engineers recommend replacing the boiler anyway, and then using those heat systems that are currently in place to heat the locker rooms. So basically, both of them are proposing getting back to ground zero. And then if we want to add air conditioning, they would put in forced air and air conditioning into just the gymnasium only. It would do primarily 3 things. It would make it more comfortable in there. Boilers are hard to regulate for comfort. They're pretty much on or off, and it can get pretty hot in there, and then also hot in the summer. So it would be definitely, you could adjust the comfort. We have a static electricity dust issue because we don't move a lot of air across the floor. Dust collects pretty quickly on the gym floor itself, and it makes it pretty challenging just to keep it clean so that it's not slippery. Not a significant issue, but it is, for a basketball player, noticeable just in terms of the performance of the gym floor. And then the other component is there's just no fresh air in terms of turning and circulating the air anymore. Anytime we do new HVAC systems, there is a component of a fresh air intake to help, again, it's part of the comfort piece of it. So, is there opportunity for improvement? Absolutely. I don't know for the cost if it remains one of our top priorities as far as a project, if we're talking about anything north of $500,000. After getting these bids back, I had an opportunity to talk to a contractor and the contractor in the HVAC game. And without really telling them what I thought it was going to take, their number was less than $200,000 for them to come in and put in new equipment. So obviously, I felt better about my original estimation in terms of what I thought it would cost. But then you add design fees. They want to touch and do fire systems. They want to do electrical systems. They want to add all these other things. They want to make sure they have a mechanical engineer. They're evaluating everything. They want to spend our money. That's what they're in business to do, I suppose. So my recommendation today, after reviewing all this stuff, and again, you guys feel free to push us in a different direction, but I would table this and let me go talk to the parish a little bit more. There's nothing that would prevent us from maybe letting them take the lead and us potentially being a partner to pay for some of it if they wanted to maybe find a contractor or go kind of a different direction. Or we go back to just putting a boiler in there and just getting heat and just keeping it the status quo for a while. So my recommendation is to table it based on these costs. I think it's pretty high for some design fees. And then their estimation in terms of what they think it's going to cost to even get anything done is pretty significant. Uncomfortably significant, I think, for the outcome of what we're trying to accomplish.
Like right now, you've got that external heater just using, flexible conduit blowing heat in. Is there any way that you can fix the boiler that you have there? Because in there, you just can't control the heat at all, I don't think.
No.
We're in there, it's about 90 degrees.
Yeah.
So is there any repair to what's there?
I don't think so. I mean, you can put in a new boiler, and then everything kind of goes back to working. And I think it's pretty well shot. That it just needs a whole new. That the main mechanism back in that back room just needs to be completely replaced, and that's again depending on vendors, $60,000 to $80,000 installed.
And both these people said that the boiler had to be replaced anyway.
Yes.
So the air conditioning would be a totally different forced air system.
Yep.
So the boiler's got to be done anyway, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I was, and Michael was there. I even asked a question. Same BTUs. Like I was absolutely because they would design it for the same basis. I mean, the same system would accept the same BTUs of the same boiler, regardless of what we do with the other gym space for heating and cooling, which shocked me.
Much sense, does it?
Not at face value, but that's what he said.
It is. That was when the MGA. It was the That was the MGA
KCL.
group. Yep, KCL.
It would be interesting to talk to more of the boilers, the size of the boilers for the entire gym, to see what they thought, because what they shot was 1/3 of what we have right now.
To see if it'd be the same BTU. If they put in a boiler.
Right. Not needing all that extra square footage, so we can put a boiler in that big.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could get one for $15,000.
Did you get much from these people? As far as information on cost?
For estimation,
Yeah.
he thought it'd be north of 500,000.
Or 500.
Yeah, I think the worry was, and he mentioned in his notes that the unknowns of electrical and the unknowns of fire, and having to put in fire dampers and alarm systems was kind of the concern.
So the heating system might not be too far off of what you suggested, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna bring in a,
Yep, it kind of opens up Pandora's box.
We're looking at that big of amount, even down the road. At what point do we start looking at having a new gym on campus, an additional gym?
We can look at that at any time. A standalone gym to do something comparable of that would be north of $4 million. So, in terms of setting priorities, and if that's the direction that the board wants to go, when those dollars become, and I think it's a worthwhile discussion if that's a path we want to do at some point. That is how we allocate resources now could inform decisions 5 or 10 years from now in terms of what we would want that to be.
Is that gym being used every night for the most part?
Yes.
Right now, I know it is, but.
Yeah, once you get into the summer, it really starts to wean off. Golf uses it in the spring for their indoor things. In the fall, it's not used as much. So summer and fall, it's not used. And it starts to pick up end of September, kind of beginning of October. It kind of tapers off in May.
And the lease says that we're obligated to maintain it?
No. So the lease reads anything over $5,000 that it would be the parish's responsibility to replace.
Oh.
So they would be the ones actually on the hook to replace the boiler if it's just replacing the current system as is to keep it operational. We asked to pause to let us evaluate and what it would cost to look at doing a better system with air conditioning. And it's not just the air conditioning piece, it is the forced air where you can move air across the floor so you can filter it and get a better surface area on that gym floor. So, I think we try to do our due diligence in terms of evaluating that. Again, estimations were that it would be cheaper than what these folks are saying it's going to be. So,
I think we're making a good decision to table this, because some of this stuff, 2 of you aren't adding up to be 4.
yeah.
I mean, this is kind of what it looks like. Because we really do have, technically, we have a forced air system there right now.
Yeah, it is forced air. It does move air across.
Because the boiler heats up an oil, and then the fan blows the air across.
Yeah.
It's not like a bunch of radiators sitting around.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we got a lot of temperature changing, maybe it's a thermostat or that. I think Kelly's bright idea, this needs to be tabled, and there needs to be some.
Yeah, and maybe it's not, and maybe we bring in somebody else besides water the boiler come in. I don't know. We've had good experience with Casper, that we could have somebody else look at it and say. So, yeah, I think that there's more information we can gather. Because we do have an action item on here, though, we do have to have a motion to table.
I'll move the table these 2 recommendations.
Joe made a motion and Bob seconded to table the HVAC project. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, the same, motion passes. On to reports, Michael.
Okay, mine will be relatively short here. Just kind of summary of what I've been working on the last month, working with the auditor, getting different information to them and getting ready to flip the calendar to 2023. I do always, around this time of year, want to thank you for adequate staff levels. It makes it a lot better around here, getting that information together and getting the year-end stuff for payroll together. I did look into the proposal that we brought to you last month. The Kay Chapman's office is providing services for the FY22 audit, but they want to do the FY22 audit before they extend an offer for 23 and beyond. But the silver lining on that is we have multiple firms interested in working with us for 23 and beyond. They just did not want to dip a toe in this late in the game to get the 22 audit done. So we did accomplish what we were after in getting an auditor on the books for the 22 audit. And they are interested in looking at 23 and beyond, but they did not want to commit to it in the RFP that I brought you last month. So that RFP did not have multi-year, it was just for 22. But they want a chance at it. Chapman wants a chance at it when they finish our 22 audit. And there were also a couple other firms that expressed interest in a multi-year 23 to 25, but they were not looking at 22. So I just wanted to clear the air on that. We'll prepare the FY23 budget reestimate now when we flip to January, and we'll start the 24 budget discussion. Get ready for negotiations and spring, summer timing for the projects that will fund either with the 23 reestimate or the 24 budget. So, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. So, that's it for me.
Michael, when we complete our 2022 audit, will that be early enough to put the FIPs out, the right acronym?
Yeah, the RFP, yep.
RFP for the next.
Yes,
so
yeah.
Plenty of time to get out there then. Okay.
Yeah, so ideally, our auditor that we had last year would have told us in like March or April, they're not coming back.
Okay.
We signed it, I mean, it's on us, right? I mean, we did sign it and say, yep, we're fine with this when they gave us the agreement the year before. But historically, they'd always given us multi-year agreements, so we thought it was a multi-year. It wasn't, it was a 1 year. So ideally, they would have told us in March or April last year that they weren't. Or in June or July when I was emailing them questions about it, they would have told us, but they told us in August, almost September 1st. So that's why we kind of ran into a buzzsaw trying to get an auditor on the hook for 22. So this year we can go in March or April, you know, and start asking those different firms for a proposal. So yep.
So I already showed you guys the picture, but I did want to shout out to Aaron, who's not here. So at ISB conference 6 years ago, Aaron learned about a school district and their branding and kind of having like a college aspect to it, and really drove a lot of our conversations we had in terms of branding, our logo work, all that stuff. And she wanted a new mascot, and it just didn't work out. It was a little expensive, but the idea never died. Then Jamie came along and said, hey, it's the idea for a new mascot. And I was like, weird, because we had a company that we worked with, had a design, had a budget, had the whole thing, sent her the information, she writes the grant, gets it, and we get a new mascot named Moxie. So things that happen at the board table, good ideas, sometimes they don't work out, but they don't have to die. They can come back. Good conversations around things that matter, and just keep talking about them, and stuff can happen if you're patient. So I just want to kind of bring it full circle back to the board that this was an idea that originated here with a board member, and wanted to give her props for kind of facilitating that. And then, Jamie did a lot of work to get it done, so I can't take any credit at all, other than just connecting a couple dots. But pretty cool experience. Other than that, a lot of the things everybody's mentioned I've been working on. Desk audit for the district, and then spending a lot of time with Haley, getting things ready to go for the transition fully in January. Really, really good response from staff across the board on that change. So thank you for allowing us to do that and support in doing that. It's really been a good change. Haley reached out to Kevin, so Kevin's been kind of back in training her, doing walkthroughs pretty regularly. Actually, I think they meet almost weekly right now. They kind of just get things cut up and show her the ropes. I think that he's enjoying it more than her. So it's been good to see Kevin around too. That's all I got.
All right, discussion, Joe. Anything? Okay. Alright. No upcoming meetings or,
Nothing,
Yes, okay.
nothing until regular meeting in January.
alright, so I just need somebody to read the 15. Please.
I move that the board go into closed session as provided by Iowa Code 21.51 to evaluate the professional competency of an individual whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered when necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to the individual's reputation and that individual's request. A closed session.
I just need a second. Bob made the motion and Erica seconded to go into closed session. Any discussion? Roll call. Bob?
Yes.
Erica? Yes. Joe?
Yes.
Candace? Yes. Move we go